What's up everyone, welcome back to Trying to Adult, where we try and figure out how to be an adult so that you don't have to learn it the hard way, like I did. Today we're talking about transitioning from high school to university and how to be successful in university. I get a lot of DMs from people in high school and university asking for advice on how to be successful in university, how to set yourself up for success, and I figured, why not make a video? It scales a lot better. Now, before I start sharing some tips and tricks for university, I figured let me share some credentials in case you're new here. So, not to brag, but I'm a Zimbabwean. I'm a Zimbabwean. I studied electrical and computer engineering in University of Cape Town, graduated after 4 years with a first class honors where I averaged 76%. I must say that is something I'm very proud of. It's kind of useless out in the real world, but I'm still happy I did it anyways. Now, during university, I had 6 internships at 5 different companies, which really set me up for success. And, I also had fun. I had a hobby, I had made money on the side. After graduating from uni, I got my first job with AWS as a cloud support associate, where my first year salary was 500,000 rands. That sounds pretty successful for a graduate, hey? And 5 years later, I'm in London as a solutions architect, still working for AWS. Anyways, enough about me. Let's jump into advice, tips for success in university. Starting with number 1, know where you're coming from, why you are there, and where you're going. This will be important for setting your priorities, and it'll be a great source of motivation, because trust me, you will need it. Know where you're coming from. I don't think I need to elaborate much on that because I don't know where you're coming from, but you know where you're coming from. You know how things look like back home. For the vast majority of people out in the world, we are not rich, which means that there's probably some sacrifices that took place for your parents to get you to where you are. You might be expected to be the breadwinner when you finish university, and that's not a lot of pressure at all. Whatever your case is, it's important to know where you're coming from, because that will be a good source of motivation during university. It's also important to know why you are there. Contrary to popular belief, university is not just for getting a degree. In fact, that's just one aspect that might lead to success. There's a lot more that goes on when it comes to being successful in the professional industry. Is that a thing? So the sooner you understand that university is not just about getting a degree, a career is not just about getting a degree and getting a job, the better. As for know where you're going, that takes me to point number 2. Get proper career guidance. There is a very good chance you are doing your degree because 1, someone told you it's a good degree, or maybe your teachers were like, you're good in math, you should do engineering, or you're really smart, you should do, you should be a doctor, or you should be a lawyer, or maybe you've got a very successful uncle who's like an actuarial scientist, and you're like, I want to do that, But that's not good career guidance. In fact, that's horrible. Take your time, step back, and really figure out whether you're doing the right program. Understand what the job opportunities look like for you specifically when you graduate. And I say you specifically because I was an international student, and job opportunities for me look very different after university than they do for like a local student. So you need to understand how that would look like for you. How do you do this? Well, your university probably has a career guidance center, so that's a good place to start. They're not always the best because sometimes they're not really in touch with reality, but it's a good place to start. Talk to people in positions where you want to be in. So if you want to be a developer, look for developers who are working for companies you want to work for. Understand how they got there. Do some job hunting. Go on LinkedIn, go on platforms like Indeed. Type your degree and graduate and see what pops up. If nothing pops up, you should really reconsider what you're doing. This is what I did when I was in high school. That's how I ended up on electrical and computer engineering, because the job market looked really good. The career progression looked really good. I knew it wasn't going to take too much time for me to get to a position where I'm earning good money. All these things. You want to know all these things before you fully commit to a degree. And you know what? If you do get to a position where you're like, I don't trust this degree, starting from zero is not a bad idea. You would rather go back from second year to first year than finish your degree 3 to 7 years later, only to realize that it's useless. There are no jobs, or you're a foreigner and it's not a critical skill and you have to go back home, and there's plenty of reasons why a degree might not be a good degree. Know those reasons before you graduate, because trust me, it's wild out there. Now, as for career guidance, 2 things I strongly recommend, is start building your CV. Your CV in first year is going to look like crap because you don't have anything, but it's going to show you where your gaps are. We have things like ChatGPT these days, and they can actually help you craft a CV for a specific job role, and use your 4 to 7 years in university to craft your CV and make sure you've got the best chance of success when you graduate. Another thing I strongly recommend is LinkedIn. Start building your LinkedIn profile from first year. Like, LinkedIn is a great way to just record your achievements and milestones over time. And trust me, once you start early and you update this thing yearly, it'll be so much easier to start using that to look for jobs when you finish, because you're not starting from scratch. You already have all these things on your profile, and you already have good connections. You know who's hiring, you know how to use the platform, and all the good stuff. That's career guidance. I know I didn't share too many tips on here, so let me know if you guys would like a deeper dive into this topic. Next up, don't let yourself fall behind. This advice is for pretty much everyone in university, because I don't believe they are easy degrees. Wow. Now, this goes for everyone in university, but I did engineering, and I'm specifically talking to engineering students when I say this. But the same advice applies to anyone doing a very time-intensive degree like engineering, accounting, law, actuarial science. Like, your degrees. The moment you fall behind, you will not be able to catch up until you finish exams. That has been the theme for my 4 years in university anyway. If you fall behind this week, you're going to use next week to catch up. And that means you're not going to be paying attention to next week's content, which means you're going to fall behind even more. So if you stay ahead of the curve, you will never have that problem. It's not going to be easy, but you want to try as much as you can and start as early as you can so that life is easy. And trust me, if you don't fall behind, life is just easier. It's easier to plan your time. It's easier to to study, because at the end of the semester, you're actually revising and not learning things from scratch. And trust me, I have done that. It's not fun. Try not to miss lectures unless they're actually not a good use of your time, but in most cases, they usually are. I had like 35 to 40 courses throughout university, and only 3 courses had lectures that I felt like were a complete waste of time. And during those lectures, instead of going to the lecture, I'll just go to the library and study and do my own self-study, and I'll usually cover a lot more content than they would during the lecture. How do you make sure you don't fall behind? Well, have good time management. This is a skill that's not only going to be useful in university, but throughout the rest of your life. If you have a crazy curriculum like I did, where there's lectures from 8 until 5 o'clock, and all of them decide to give you homework at the same time, you need to manage your time effectively to make sure that you stay on top of things. Now, how I approached time management was to use my Google Calendar and make sure every single hour of every day has something in it, including rest. So I would, wake up at like 6:30 or whatever, breakfast, do all the good stuff, go to campus, lectures from 8 until 5 or something. And if I don't finish at 5, if I finish earlier, I would still stay on campus until like 6 o'clock to use that time to study and just catch up with homework and assignments and everything. And then go back home. I'll give myself like 2-3 hours of rest and just catching up with friends or whatever. And then 8 o'clock, I'm back on campus working again until like midnight, and then go to sleep and then repeat. My calendar was packed, and I would make sure to follow that. And you also want to make sure you plan your entire semester in advance as much as you can. So usually within the first 2-3 weeks, you know exactly when your tests are going to be. You have an idea of when your exams are going to be, and then plan your time. I knew that if I have a test next week, I'm going to need 1 week to study for that test, and I'll know when those tests are taking place. So I'd make sure to actually allocate enough time to study for those tests. That way, I'm not studying last minute. I'm not stressed trying to finish assignments whilst I still have to study for exams and everything. Like, when you have good time management, it makes life so much easier. And you also feel like you have a lot of time. Get work experience, or internships, or VAC work, whatever you call it. Now, it's not easy to get an internship in university. I really tried in my first year. I failed. But work experience and internships have a snowball effect. Once you get your first one, it becomes significantly easier to get more. Like I said, the first one was really hard in first year. I didn't even get anything. And then second year, I managed to get an internship with a software dev company back in, Durban. Beautiful time. And after that, it was a breeze. I never failed to get an internship for the rest of my uni life. That's why I end up with like 6 different internships. Internships, they're like taking samples at the grocery store. It's nice to get a real taste of what could be possible when you graduate. Now, the reason why you really want to focus on getting an internship is, one, work experience is a lot more important to a lot of roles than a degree. Like, a degree is good, especially if you're a graduate. Having a degree is very necessary. But work experience is what sets you apart from everyone else. Especially if you are in a situation where you're competing against other people who have a better edge on you. Work experience also opens your eyes to what's possible. Did I say that right? Anyways, you realize there's a lot more to life than just the few different roles that you are familiar with. So I was focusing on becoming a software developer, but during my time in my internships, I realized there's a lot more in tech than being a developer. My first job was cloud support, technical support. I worked with data analysts. I worked with SRE engineers. That's a role I discovered when I started working. You get a lot of exposure to what's possible out there, and it gives you options. When it comes to job hunting, knowing what's out there will give you a big edge, because you're applying to a lot of places people aren't applying to because they're not aware that they exist. I'd say the most value I got from internships was networking. And once I finished studying, it actually really came in handy, because as a foreigner, it's not easy to get jobs once you graduate. But because I had good connections in these companies I worked at, they offered me jobs. Next up, get a hobby. Yeah, university is not all about studying and working, but I strongly recommend that you get yourself a hobby. I wanted to be a DJ back in first year. I was not good at all, but I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. But I realized that being a DJ involved going out to clubs, and that wasn't really my lifestyle. So I decided to get into photography, and I really enjoyed it. It gave me an opportunity to sink into something that's not books, and I definitely needed that, because I was spending a significant amount of time in the library. This allowed me to get creative, and I eventually turned it into a side hustle. I actually made some decent income from photography back in university, and it gave me excuses to explore the city. I would find myself on weekends in like a remote beach somewhere in Muizenberg, or maybe go hiking specifically for taking pictures. And it's also a good opportunity to meet new people who share the same interests that you do. And that actually takes me to my next point, which is have a social life. You'd think that after everything I've said, you won't have time for social life, but I recommend you make time for it, which is why you need good time management. University is the easiest it's ever going to be for you to make friends. After you graduate, it's downhill from there. And trust me, I know what I'm talking about. And having a social life can mean different things to different people. For some people, it's partying and going out and drinking and getting drunk. That's great. I know people who love the fact that they were able to do that at university. But it could also be joining clubs, hanging out with friends, discovering hobbies, and so on. So take advantage of societies, clubs, sports, find a hobby. Hobbies are a great way to make new friends and to meet people with similar interests that you have. For you, it might not be photography. It could be, sports, football, rugby, touch rugby. It could be joining societies like DJing. Hobbies, for me, photography was a great way to relieve stress, and I had plenty of that going around. And I always found time for it. Like, thinking back, I don't know how I did, because I had so much work. I had such a crazy workload during university, but I would make time on the weekends, just go watch the sunset, take some pictures, meet up with some friends, do some photo shoots here and there, have fun. As stressful as university can be, try to have fun whilst you're at it. And last but not least, stay away from women. Now, for me, I knew what my priorities were. I knew what my goals were. And focusing on a relationship was not going to help me achieve any of those goals. In fact, I consider relationships in university like side quests in a game. You know, they are fun, they can be very rewarding, but they can also turn into tricky boss fights and derail you from your main objective, your main quest. So keep that in mind. But on the real though, you know, just make sure if you are gonna date, make sure you're dating somebody who aligns with your vision. You know, for me, dating university would have meant dating somebody I can spend the whole night in the library with and study with, you know, that kind of shit. Like, if you are gonna date, make sure you know, you are very selective, you choose the right person for you, and disregard the nonsense. And there you have it, the tried and tested trying to adult guide to not just surviving university but thriving university. And remember this, I can't stress this enough, but life is not a straight line, and don't be alarmed if yours doesn't look like a straight line. You might have to, you know, do some curves, you know, use some detours, sometimes maybe even do a U-turn, and that's fine. Do not compare yourself to others. You know, just, you know, focus on yourself, know where you're coming from, know where you're going, and know why you're there. Awesome. Let me know if you guys enjoyed it. Leave a comment in the comment section if you've got anything to add, if you have questions, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Shab.